Well, Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much for your time. We sure appreciate you joining us.
Sure.
I wanted to start with asking about your reaction to news yesterday from Governor Abbott reopening the state of Texas. How do you feel about it?
So we've been open more than most states, and I think we've proven that we can do two things at once, and that is protect the public and also keep our economy moving. So it's important. If you'll recall, about a month ago, I sent a letter to the EVAP committee asking them to put a focus on vaccinating seniors. And this is a key part, I believe, of what the governor laid out yesterday. So our goal is to have everyone 65 and over vaccinated by the end of this month or in early April, or almost everyone. I can't say 100%, but everyone who wants one. And why that's important is because our 65 plus are those who are mostly in the hospital or in the ICU units, and those who, 72 to 73% have died from the virus. So once we get that population vaccinated, that should cut down on people going to the hospital. It should cut down on the death rate and cut down on the ICU rate. So one of the reasons I think we can take this step is the progress of the vaccinations. Again, we still have another 4 to 6 weeks to take care of that entire population. And then secondly, if we look at our numbers in hospitals today in ICU units and the positivity rates, they're at the lowest level. And there can be a day here or two that they spike somewhere in the state, but we're at the lowest level since, late fall, about 4 months ago. So I think the combination of the numbers are tailing off and the vaccinations are increasing, particularly with our most vulnerable population, makes this very doable.
How do you feel about the timing? The move to 100% was a bit stunning to some people who didn't expect it. Is this too soon, or could have we done it even a bit sooner?
Well, I don't want to give away conversation with the governor, but I think if he were asked, you might hear that he was thinking that a few days before, but the storm and the aftermath of the storm delayed it a few days. So I think the timing is right. Look, I'm not a mandate person to begin with. I believe that you give people information and let them make the decision about their own lives. We're not telling people not to wear a mask. We're still recommending social distance. And if you feel comfortable wearing a mask, wear a mask. For myself, for example, often I'll wear a mask around people who I know want me to wear a mask because that's their comfort level. So out of respect to them, I'll do that. But for most people, I think they've now decided that they're comfortable wearing masks and they don't mind it, or they don't want to wear a mask. And this just says the state's not going to mandate that you have to. Businesses can still require it, for example. In terms of opening 100%, here's the truth. In a restaurant, if you're at 75%, what is the difference of another few people? I mean, in reality, because most restaurants aren't full 100% most of the time. They might be on 1 or 2 nights a week on a busy night. So the 100%, I don't think impacts that industry. The grocery stores, to my knowledge, no one's has a clicker at the door. It hasn't had for a long time of how many people in the grocery store, or if you go to Home Depot. So what is 100%? I think businesses, quite frankly, have been operating pretty much, pretty full capacity for several months now.
Lieutenant Governor, were you involved in the conversations with the governor about reopening Texas?
No, he did call the speaker and myself a few hours before the press conference and told us what he was going to say, which I appreciated, gave us a heads up on that. But I've been working on the storm issue, quite frankly. As you know, on Monday, I sent a letter to the chair of the PUC and the CEO of ERCOT to resign. The chair did later that day within hours of my letter. The ERCOT CEO still has not resigned, but one way or the other, he's going to be leaving at some point sooner than later because he was at the heart of this issue. Not blaming any one person, but when you have the PUC, which oversees ERCOT, and we have 9 hours of testimony with them, and I listened to almost everything they said in that testimony. When they said that there's nothing they would have really done differently, and when they were asked by senators from both parties what they would do in the future, they had no answers. And considering what happened, we almost had the entire grid go down. People lost their lives. Thousands of people had their homes damaged. It was time for new leadership. So I've really been focused on that, quite frankly. And I put that letter out without talking to the governor. The governor's got his agenda. I've got my agenda. We work together very well, but we also work independently. So one was not really tied to the other.
If I can ask a few follow-up questions on reopening Texas, and then I will get to the winter storm.
Sure.
Do you know if there were any medical professionals consulted in making this decision to reopen the state?
Again, I was not involved with his decision, but I do know that for the last year, he has been, always consulting with his team that's comprised of doctors.
And my last question on this point, and then we can
Sure.
switch to the winter storm. I had the opportunity yesterday to talk to a few women who lost their mother to the coronavirus, and they called this a death sentence for some Texans and a slap in the face to those who are still grieving the loss of people in their lives due to the coronavirus. What do you say to those families?
First of all, our hearts go out to anyone who lost their lives during this time. One thing that we're trying to prevent, and the reason I sent my letter to the EVAP committee 4 or 6 weeks ago, was to vaccinate everyone 65 plus, because again, there's 72% roughly of the people who have died. So I'm very focused on that issue. But if we are making progress in vaccinating people, which we are, we're still 4 to 6 weeks away from vaccinating that entire population. And if our hospital numbers are going down and our positivity rate is going down, then we need to get our state back to as close as normal as possible. And again, the governor didn't say, and I'm not speaking for him, but I read the executive order and I talked to him yesterday. We're saying if a business wants to continue to do that, they have the right to do that. If a person wants to continue to wear a mask, and I believe many will continue to do that, they can do that. We're leaving it up to the school districts as we have this entire school year. If they want to implement masks required in the schools, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. So all he did was take down the mandate. And I think anyone watching right now has already kind of made a decision for themselves over this past year. And that is they are not comfortable being around people without a mask, but they're not comfortable not wearing a mask themselves. And they're going to continue to follow that pattern until they really feel safe. And I think there are other people who have said, I feel like I'm at the point, particularly when you get in rural Texas or a little bit out, away from our larger cities. Few people are wearing masks. And so I think people have kind of charted their own course now of how they go about their lives. And the mandate, for example, at the Capitol, we've had signs that say a mask is required to come into the Capitol. Starting next week on the 10th, that sign will say, we strongly recommend you wear a mask. So we're not telling people don't social distance and don't wear a mask. We're just lifting the mandate.
And Lieutenant Governor, if we could just talk a little bit more about that winter storm then.
Sure.
How are you feeling about what has happened since?
Well, I was, again, very disappointed with the testimony we heard from the PUC chair and the CEO of ERCOT, because they took no responsibility and they had no ideas or suggestions for how to avoid it. So that's why I asked them to step down and resign. We're just beginning to scratch the surface of why this happened. I can tell you a couple of quick things. One is they told the governor on the Saturday before the storm they were prepared. Well, they clearly were not prepared. We've discovered in the 9 hours of testimony and other investigations that we've been doing, they had 14,000 megawatts of power down for maintenance. Now that's routine. I think moving forward, they will move that maintenance to March. I mean, we don't normally have that kind of weather in February, and that's why they do the maintenance then, but we should move that. But they didn't take that into account. They also assumed that they would get 12 to 15,000 megawatts of power from wind and solar, and they were getting less than 5,000. They should have known that. They assumed that every plant would be operating. Well, if you have in West Texas, as we did with the wind chill, 20 degrees below, they should have taken into account that some plants might have problems with equipment freezing up. And what they also didn't take into account is when they started turning off the power, they actually turned off the power in West Texas and other places in Texas that were generating the gas to the plants to create the energy. So these are things that you just step back and say, wait a minute. They didn't take anything of that into account. So we're going to address all of those issues. Secondly, the communications was terrible. They did not tell any of us or get the word out to the public that this was going to be anything more than brownouts. We should have, looking back, they should have said to us, tell the people of Texas, you may lose power for a day or two, like we do in a hurricane. Put gasoline in your car, fill your bathtub with water in case you can't flush the toilets, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it was just a total breakdown of preparation and communication. And that's why we needed. Look, here's the bottom line. I'm the president of the Senate as lieutenant governor. No bill gets to the floor unless I approve it going to the floor for a vote. I will not allow a bill to go to the floor that doesn't fully address these issues and other issues, whether it comes out of a Senate committee or it comes over from the House. We're not going to make suggestions about winterization. It will be a mandate on what we think are the best ideas. And we're going to tell those in the industry to do it. So I'm putting this on my back as the president of the Senate. I'm working with the governor and the speaker, of course, and we all want to resolve this, but I'm personally taking responsibility to fix this. And we're going to get it done. There are a lot of other aspects of this. For example, if witnesses don't want to come in and testify, I'm going to give the power of the subpoena to my chairman to subpoena people, which we seldom, if ever, do. But we want everyone to come to the table and answer questions if need be. We want to be sure there was no manipulation or profiteering in the gas markets. We want to look at these variable rate plans. Most of these people have gotten these sky-high bills you read about who are on adjustable rate plans. They were getting the advantage of very cheap kilowatt. The average person has a fixed plan paying 10 to 15. Some of these people are paying 2, 3, and 4 cents a plan, and they had no idea this was going to hit them like that. So I'm telling them, don't panic. We'll figure that out for you. But I'm thinking maybe we should do away with these variable rate plans so no one gets in this position. Again, very few people are on those plans. Most people are on a fixed rate plan. And for those of you on that fixed rate plan, your bill will probably go up this month just because you turned on the heat more, like any time, but your rate is fixed. That's why you have a fixed rate plan. So your rate's not going up. But these people in these variable rate plans, they're the ones that went up skyrocketing to these big bills. But we'll figure this out for those people who have those bills. Don't panic. So a lot of things that we have to do. One of the first things we're going to do is pass a bill as soon as we can, I think in the next several weeks, that will become law immediately. I think we'll have enough votes for that to take place to totally reform the ERCOT board so that we can make new appointments to that board. We have to replace the Public Utility Commission chair that resigned after I requested it this week. So we have a lot to do before the end of session. And if we have to go into another month, then we'll go into another month. But I don't want to go into the hottest days of summer or another winter next year with the same people who were in charge with the same thinking. We've got to change preparation and planning and communication.
ERCOT CEO is yet to resign, correct?
Right. Correct.
And you stated earlier, he's going to be out one way or another. Is that what you're saying?
One way or the other. One way or the other. We will, if he does not step down on his own, and we may have to reconstitute the entire board to make that happen.
How do you push him out if he doesn't step down on his own?
Well, first of all, we're going to look at his contract and see what the contract says. And we're in the process of that. Secondly, when we pass ERCOT reform, right now, the board of ERCOT is chosen by other board members on ERCOT under the guidance of the PUC. The new board will be confirmed by the Senate, like almost every board member of any commission is, as you know. When the governor appoints someone to any board or region, it comes to the Senate for a hearing and confirmation. So we will select a new board that we believe we can have confidence in. And there may be some people from the current board that stay. I don't know. The current board is 16. I think the number could be much less than that. 16 is a little unwieldy. We don't need people from out of state. Most of the people have resigned. We're out of state people. So we will have a board in place that I think will do the right thing if he doesn't do the right thing.
Lieutenant Governor, anything that you'd like to bring out, whether it be on Texas reopening or on the winter storm? That the one thing I want to ask is that,
yes,
we have heard from a few people who believe that reopening Texas may be a easy distraction to avoid conversations and the spotlight being on the debacle that was the winter storm. Do you think there's any?
Probably Democrats saying that. But I can tell you, as I said, and being very candid, when I issued my letter on Monday for the resignations, I didn't talk to the governor about it beforehand. And the governor didn't talk to me or the speaker about what his plan was until, maybe an hour or so before the press conference. So we have a lot on our plate here. I don't believe anything was connected. In fact, I think had we not had the winter storm, the governor may have made this announcement last week. So we can do more than one thing at a time. Both of these are very big issues. Dealing with COVID and dealing with the storm are very big issues. So I don't see a connection, and whatever the political pundits want to say is up to them.